Well, you're the people who pay the taxes, and you know that we don't have a deficit because we're taxed too little. We have a deficit because Congress spends too much. It's about time that Congress took care of the federal budget and left the family budget alone. There's another issue that Mark Andrews and I feel strongly about, and I bet you do too. That's keeping America strong and proud and peaceful and free. As you know, I just recently returned from my meeting with Mr. Gorbachev in Iceland. That meeting was a breakthrough in our discussions with the Soviets. We're no longer talking about arms control. We're talking about arms reductions. Possibly even the complete elimination of ballistic missiles from the face of the earth. Now, that's an historic turnaround for the Soviets, and it wouldn't have been possible without the firm support of the American people, whose hard work and support have enabled us to rebuild our military might. The American people know that the only way to negotiate for peace is from a position of strength. We're closer to real arms reductions than ever before, and it's because America is once again strong and united. But one major obstacle remains in Iceland. Unfortunately, Mr. Gorbachev decided to make all of our progress hostage to his demand that we kill our Strategic Defense Initiative. Now, I had to remind him of my pledge to the American people on SDI, that in America, when you give your word, you give your word, and that stands up no matter what the time or place. SDI is our insurance policy to protect us from accidents or some madmen that might come along, or some other country that develops ballistic missiles, or in case the Soviets don't keep their side of the bargain. You know, before World War II, the British were developing a new defense system. It was called radar. And without radar, it's possible that the Royal Air Force wouldn't have been able to beat back the Nazi air assault on England. If you recall, you won't recall, you weren't here at the time, but those of us who do, but you perhaps read that when Winston Churchill acknowledged what that little band of fighter pilots had done from England and to save England, and with the help of that radar, when he said never in the course of human events have so many owed so much to so few. Well, I couldn't help but think that giving up SDI would have been like Chamberlain giving up radar as well as Czechoslovakia at Munich. A tragic blunder that might have spelled the end to freedom in Europe. SDI is a purely defensive and purely peaceful technology. If the Soviets honestly want progress toward a world free of nuclear weapons, they have nothing to fear from SDI. The Soviets are hard bargainers. America must be even more patient and determined and united. And America must speak with one voice, saying loud and clear, we'll walk the extra mile for peace, but we will never gamble with America's safety. And I hope you all realize that when he was saying no to this SDI, this was after I had told him we would sign a binding treaty right now that if and when we had developed that system and it was practical, we would share it with them so that we neither one of us ever had to be afraid of the other country. And still, they said no. So I want to ask you a question. Can I count on your support to keep America strong and united and on the road to peace? have thought you'd say that. You know, if I could interject something here, there's nothing that I'm prouder of than the 2 million young men and women who make up the armed forces of the United States. They're some of the most splendid young people this nation has ever produced. And let me say this. If we must ever ask them to put their lives on the line for the United States of America, then they deserve at the same time the finest weapons and equipment money can buy, and I'm going to see that they get them. And it's because of the quality of the men and women in our armed forces and the quality of the weapons that they carry in defense of this country that every nickel and dime dictator the world over knows that if he tangles with the United States of America, he will pay a price. Yes, America is once again united in hope and strong in purpose. We've squashed inflation, cut the prime interest rate by more than 2/3, and we're keeping the doors of the Opportunity Society wide open by cutting tax rates further and spurring on the economic expansion that has already created 11.5 million new jobs in the last 46 months. This year, more Americans are working than ever before, and we've reached the highest employment rate in the history of the United States. Now, I know you keep reading unemployment rates that are given, but let me just tell you a little something about how Washington, the bureaucracy, works. The potential employment pool of the United States is considered to be everyone, male and female, in the United States from age 16 all the way up. And today, 61.3% of that pool is employed here in the United States. America is moving forward, but that doesn't mean that we don't recognize that some sectors of our country are not sharing fully in this expansion. I understand the problems facing the American energy industry in states like North Dakota, and I recognize that in the midst of bountiful harvests, American agriculture is going through a difficult transition. In Illinois and South Dakota and today here in Grand Forks, whenever I get a chance, I've been meeting with farm leaders to talk about the problems facing American agriculture. As I've said to them and as I say to you now, government will stand by you during these hard times. And that's why this administration is providing more financial help to our America's farmers than the last 5 administrations all put together. And falling interest rates and inflation have been cutting production costs for farmers. The last thing farmers need is to return to the party that gave them grain embargoes, outrageous inflation, and 21.5% interest rates. Now, I know there are things in the Farm Bill that Mark doesn't like, and there's some things in it I don't like. But we both agree that government programs ought to be better targeted to the family farmers who need it most. Right now, some subsidies operate to make rich farmers richer, and we're opposed to that. Mark and I have fought together against that aspect of the system, and in future years, we'll renew that fight. Coming from rural America, I understand. I'm not talking about Hollywood now. I was raised in Dixon, Illinois.